This is the Voice of the Land podcast with your hosts, Kevin Arnold and Nick Paulus.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome on in to another episode of the Voice of the Land podcast. This is Season 3, Episode 6. I'm one of your hosts, Kevin Arnold. Alongside me, as always, my brother, Nick Paulus, and behind the proverbial glass, we have our producer, Peter Tillip. We are presented by and proud to partner with Web Streaming Studio by LPV and NEO Sports Network here on the Voice of the Land podcast. You can always catch us here on Google, Spotify, Apple, traditionally how we always post it out there. But of course, now we have the video element, and you get to see some of these video clips out on Vimeo. I know Paulus has been sharing that. Yes. Peter's been sharing those as well, clipping those up for us, so we really appreciate
great job
doing those
Absolutely.
Things, getting some more content out there for people. Working through trying to get maybe the whole podcast at some point. Right now, all you need is little video clips of us on camera, right? So, but before we get into everything, Paulus, how are you doing, man? We had a basketball game yesterday. How are you feeling?
I am feeling extremely rough today.
Are you?
Yeah. So for the people that don't know or that didn't listen last week, we had a ESPN sort of group thing that we wanted to promote. It was myself, Mike Rizzo, and Corey Smith, and we all went out.
Corey Scott?
Oh, Corey Scott, Cody Smith, Corey. Yep, there we go. But yeah, Corey, we went out to the Strongsville Rec Center.
Yeah.
Did a ESPN Cleveland versus listener session.
I guess technically I was a listener.
Pickup
right?
game. Yeah, you were a listener there for us, but we mingled it all up.
Oh, yeah.
It was, so as soon as we got done with that, I was feeling, I felt pretty good, worn out a little bit, but sweat everywhere, so, but it was whoa, be careful. But I felt pretty good. I felt pretty good leaving there. I felt great. This morning was extremely rough. Getting up out of bed and like creak, back, arms, elbow, like all my joint problems. And like it's not so much the muscle aspect of anything. It was literally all joints.
Yeah.
And like everything cracked, creaked. It was a rough morning.
But yeah, like I told you, we started working out this week and trying to get back into a routine just for better life, just try to keep things moving. I know you've been working on things as well. So, but then basketball, didn't get a chance to work out Friday night. So playing yesterday, it's kind of almost a replacement workout.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I really played some competitive not really up and down the court. We were playing more half court just based on court space. But, even just taking the ball out and, just playing in the half court, that sort of short spurt sprinting, those types of, and making those cuts and trying to get those screens along the baseline coming out towards the 3-point line.
I have to say something. First off, okay. So yesterday once again was a rough day for me out on the court, but I felt like I held my own, a little bit out there. I can't score. Like that's not my game, passing, blocking, everything like that. That's what I do.
Right.
Picking. I had a couple of steals, couple of rebounds yesterday. I was feeling pretty good. I sat out for a second, and then I was subbing in for Always Positive J.
Yeah.
For the listeners portion of it. So I sat out for about 10 minutes. Always Positive Jay was like, dude, I need tapped out. I was like, I got you, Jay. I got you.
Don't worry.
So Jay comes out, and then I'm guarding this kid. I mean, literally, he's 13 years old. He's like a foot shorter than me. And I'm like,
I remember what you're
talking about. I'm like, okay, I got this kid. We'll dance around and whatever. The kid started scoring on me. Like he scored like 2 points on me in like 10 seconds, it felt like. Yeah. He kept running that baseline. Yeah. Back and forth. I couldn't catch up to him. I felt so bad about myself immediately because I'm like, dude, I could be a father figure to this child.
Yeah. And
he's just running up and down past me. I couldn't catch him. It was bad. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, you get on the court and like, what are we doing?
Right.
Like where is my guy that, get down the post and try to just be that big body, get in the way, things like that. No, you got the guy that's running those screens along the baseline and everything.
You and Rizzo, you and Mike Rizzo were cleaning up. scoring from every which angle, shooting, bombing threes.
Yeah, I'll give Rizzo a lot more credit for that than I
Rizzo's
was.
bombing, and like he always said, he's like, dude, I got a great shot, I got this. I was like, okay, maybe you do, maybe you don't.
When
he
guys
showed
talk,
up.
when
he
guys
showed
talk
up.
a big game, you know,
But,
if you don't get to see it, you tend to question it.
Yeah,
but Rizzo showed up.
100%.
Corey
he showed up.
Corey is pretty good.
Corey's very good.
He's that point guard that you want out there because
Absolutely.
he knows. He gets a very quick sense of what everybody can do out there on the floor and gets guys in position, guys and girls in position to be successful out there. And that's what you want. That's what you want out of a point guard. I was very surprised by that. Not necessarily surprised in like I didn't think Corey had the athletic bone in his body, but more so like just the IQ and the quickness of picking up what everybody could do out there on the floor.
He had a Kyrie crossover yesterday that like blew my mind. And like went up for the layup. I thought that was the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Right, and I think it was like almost like a between the legs type thing, but it like went behind through the legs just to try to create that space for a little jumper or to find that passing lane. I saw it once when I was guarding him. Mm-hmm. And it kind of got me. I'll admit it got me.
Yeah.
I'm that kind of defender though. If you give me once on a move and you're gonna try to bring it back,
not again.
Not again.
Yeah.
Not again. So I was able to stay pretty close to him.
I'm quite the opposite. Yeah, I'll see the move and you're gonna get me again and again
and again. Yeah. I mean, but it was just a good time to get out there on the floor, and you know, I don't mean to toot my own horn or anything like that, but last game, coming down to 2 points away from the win, we were going up to 12s. We were doing straight 12s too. It wasn't just
12.
Where you had to like win by 2 or anything. It was just if you won by 1 or once you got to 12 points or over,
just get to 12.
Game was over. It was I think it was like 10-9 or 10-8 at that time. Come off a screen down along the baseline. Rizzo I thought was just gonna take the shot because he was 35 feet out where he was kind of bombing threes all day long. Mm-hmm. Come off that screen, passes over to me, wide open, knock it down, end the game. Had a nice little fun moment there with the chest bump and stuff. Like, those are like those competitive moments, but those fun competitive moments that missed over a time. Yeah. But it was just kind of fun to just drop the mic, drop that last, walk off the court victorious like that. But that would be like my one moment for the next few years. They'll last me for the next few years. I won't be able to do that.
It'll last. It'll last for you.
I won't be able to repeat that kind of move. You can't get me with a repeated move against me. But I can't repeat things that I do. That's not the kind of player I am. I'm a pretty good defender, can knock down a few shots, but I'm gonna be the one doing the dirty work, not the one that's gonna be scoring all the time. I'll get one moment, I'll be good for a couple years.
There you go. Yeah.
Now, in terms of basketball though, in this city, we had big issues this past week. And I know it's been a few days since all of this has transpired. The Cavs have played a couple games. One very surprising. We'll get into that in a second. One not so surprising. Last night against the Miami Heat, of course, they were honoring Dwayne Wade, and they were doing like a 3-night type ceremony for him to honor him. Yeah. And I think I saw him rapping a little bit. He has a song out there now, and he's getting in the music industry. Dwayne Wade's doing a lot of stuff right now. Good. Maybe
more than welcome to.
More than welcome to.
He's very well deserved. He can do what he wants now.
Taking advantage of retirement. That's
absolutely.
He's earned that right as one of those quality Hall of Fame caliber, and he will be a Hall of Famer one day. Whether it's first ballot, second ballot, he will be.
He'll be first. He'll be a first.
Yes, he will. I mean, he's one of those guys that he was so good early on, and then he was so willing to allow Chris Bosh and LeBron to come in and be more of a collective unit. Yeah, it took him a year to figure everything out. But Dwayne Wade is the heart and soul of Miami Heat basketball. He is going to be the best Miami Heat player to go down in history. Yes, they got a great culture down there, and they're playing really well. And they beat up on the Cavs last night. They'll be in the playoffs this year.
The greatest Heat player of all time, but he wasn't the best Heat player of all time.
Right.
Let's make that clear.
Right.
LeBron's 4 years down there was the best player on the planet.
Oh, yeah.
For that time frame. Better than what Dwayne Wade ever was. Don't get me wrong, Dwayne Wade was phenomenal. Especially whenever he had Shaq, I think, what was that, year 2 or year 3, whenever they had Shaq and ended up beating the, was it Dallas, right?
Yeah.
It was the Mavericks.
Yeah.
Fantastic player, greatest Heat player of all time for sure.
Oh yeah, but when LeBron comes into your team, you automatically have until people
you are
prove,
now number 2.
right? Until people prove otherwise, LeBron is the best player on the planet and still playing to that level at this point. Giannis is
number 17. I mean, year 17, and you're still dishing out 25. I think he has 9 assists this year. He's averaging, and
9 or 10 assists.
Yeah,
he was
something crazy.
He was near the top, if not leading the league at one point this year in assists. Because what makes LeBron so great is you're going to get those dunk highlights every now and again, but he's playing below the rim and understanding where his body is at, where his mind is at, where his career is at these days.
Yeah.
He's understanding how to use that basketball IQ to still be so dominant and have an impact on the game. Whether he scores 10 points or he scores 30 points or 40 points, he's still having an impact on the game on the score sheet, just like he did here.
Absolutely.
Rebounding, assists, steals, and just being, when he's on the floor, you're going to have to account for him anyway. So he's going to have that kind of impact. Giannis is going for his second MVP, but he's a young up and coming player trying to take over that mantle. LeBron is still the best player in this league. KD's been
hands down.
KD hasn't had a chance to fully ever take over that position, been hurt, and then went to Golden State. Those kinds of things may have hurt how people see KD in the league. A guy like Kyrie can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
Best ability is availability. We say it every single week, it seems like. Somehow, some way, that comes up. And I was actually doing an interview last night with the Cut FFL podcast, and we had that same kind of conversation with guys in the Browns. We'll get into the Browns in a little bit, but we had a pretty good Browns conversation last night, and shout out to those guys, Christian and Randy over there at the Cut, for having me on, and I'm sure we'll get things going between the two podcasts there. We'll talk about that towards the end, but it's that best ability is availability, and Kyrie hasn't been able to take on any sort of big-time player in the NBA with the talent we saw here in Cleveland because of that.
Right. No, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, we can go a ton of different ways.
Oh, yeah.
Whenever we're talking about, former Cavs or, especially LeBron, Kyrie, everyone like that. I think what everyone wants to know right now, though, here for Cleveland is what the hell's going on with the Cavs?
Right, because we're talking about guys right now that have had an impact on the Cavaliers' history in LeBron and Kyrie, and now, fast forward to 2020, we have a coach who got a 5-year deal coming from the school up north.
A 67-year-old coach got a 5-year deal.
Got a 5-year deal trying to, what we thought the direction was, bringing in these young point guards. He was so used to a point guard-driven or a two-guard system-driven type basketball platform that he was developing up there at the school up north, and thought developing young guys that he was so used to connecting with at the college level, and they weren't far removed from that kind of age. We thought that was going to happen, and now we transition to the 3/4 mark of the NBA season, and he wants out. He walks away, and mutually agree to part ways.
It's from behind the scenes. Apparently, it's bad.
It's bad.
It's bad, and it had to do a lot with a lot of the veteran players on the team.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking Tristan. We're talking Love, especially Kevin Love.
Right.
It was a bad situation from the start.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that because you heard it leak out at the very beginning of the year about how, Coach Beeline's making us practice so hard and we got to watch so much game tape. Yeah, because you guys are the worst team in the league. Like you have to do these sort of things in order to get better. But a lot of these vets on this team didn't want to take over that role, and they didn't want to teach Colin Sexton how to do something right, or Garland, or KPJ. Yeah. I mean, there were so many young players on this team that needed guidance this year, and it just never happened. And that is a damn shame whenever it comes to that, because John Beilein tried to do something for these players, and it never took. It never took. Why do you think that was?
The culture that was established, and I'm not going to say I blame LeBron for it, but it was just this, we're the Cavs, we're going to flip this switch because we're so good and the East is so down.
Yeah.
We're going to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals. somehow you give us a chance in the Eastern Conference Finals, and it took a lot of effort to get through that last Eastern Conference Finals when LeBron was here against the Celtics, but they still made it to the finals.
But that's because you had LeBron on the team.
Right, you had LeBron on the team. You had that guy to go to when time needed it.
Sure, but you don't have that now.
Right, you don't have that now because no one has stepped up to take that role. Kevin Love was going to be seen as that guy because he seemed to be that all-star caliber player that was going to be loyal to this team, signing these extensions, being willing and understanding where the team was going. But what is the direction, really? Because now Kevin Love, Tristan have kind of taken on that, well, we don't need to work. We can just kind of flip the switch. We can do just enough to get us to a point of competing.
It doesn't make any sense whatsoever because you don't have that sort of talent on this team. In the past, like what you were saying, you had LeBron, you had Kyrie, you had all of these players that literally could flip the switch
and then go into their role and take whatever they needed to off the shoulders of LeBron and Kyrie.
Kevin Love and Tristan Thompson aren't those types of players. No. I know Kevin's getting paid like that kind of player, but he isn't that type of player. He is a third to possibly fourth option on this 15-41 team. I mean, it's mind-blowing how bad Kevin Love is now. And it's not like we're looking at like Minnesota. Kevin was 20-10 every single night. You knew what you were getting. I mean, he was just
dealt a bad hand out there.
Dealt
in Minnesota.
A bad hand.
He was trying all he could.
You felt like Kevin Garnett Jr. Like oh, woe is him. Let's get him out of the situation. He comes out. He plays for the Cavs. He's a third option. To Kyrie and LeBron, which makes all the sense in the world, obviously.
Yeah.
But now that those guys are gone, the culture had never changed. And I think what comes about that is that you're basically looking at the front office and Dan Gilbert as the people that didn't change the culture when it needed to be changed. The moment LeBron left for LA, because the writing was on the wall. The moment that he left for LA and you brought in Colin Sexton, you needed to change up everything right then and there to not just appease the young, not a savior. Colin Sexton's not a savior. He's a good player. I think he can be an all-star type of player, but it's going to take a while and it's going to take a lot of coaching. The guy was 19 years old coming into the NBA. He needed a lot of help. And he got nothing over the last 2 years. He's had, 4 coaches in not even 2 years yet.
Right.
Mind-blowing.
Yeah, because you had Tyronn Lue, Larry Drew.
The voice.
This
is why we have this podcast.
Yeah, Larry Drew is, for those that don't know, and I think it's a good time to just kind of rehash how this name of the Voice of the Land came to be now that we have the video to have this out there as well. Larry Drew called himself, he didn't want to be called the interim head coach. He was the voice of the team. And as we were kind of just doing some practice podcasts to try to get our chemistry down before we really started putting this product out there, it just kind of, we didn't put up a name at all. We just kind of went off and just started having sports conversations just to get that back and forth chemistry down. Then all of a sudden, Larry Drew comes about and says he's the voice of the Cavs.
We thought it was the most ridiculous thing that we had ever heard.
Right.
Ever.
And then it turned into the voice of the land because we are the voice of the land. We're not some coach for the land or anything like that, but we are the voice of reason. Yes. We are the voice of Cleveland sports, trying to bring sports talk back to what it's supposed to be, conversations, debate.
Which is something we thought Larry Drew might have been able to do.
Right. Bring basketball back to reality. Relevance here in Cleveland and develop an actual culture, an actual system. That did not happen.
No.
So then you turn to John Beilein, college coach. You think, oh, well, the goal is by having that coach come in, we thought the direction was develop the young players a guy that's well respected within the basketball ranks, never been at the NBA level.
Which was an issue that you and I had talked about.
We did, but still in the back of your mind thinking, well, he has that much respect. he is a guy that could have the ability to get the respect of Tristan, Kevin.
He was able to get like these 3-star players at Michigan and turn them into 5-star prospects.
Yes.
I mean, look at what he did with like Trey Burke. Who knew who Trey Burke was until Michigan and he developed in the system, and he turned out to be a decent player in the NBA. I mean, he's not anything great or
first
anything
couple
like
years
that,
he was pretty good because of that, but then lost that sort of development because he didn't have a guy like John Beilein.
Right.
John Beilein did so much for Trey Burke's career, and you thought that that's what he was going to do for these young players, and you wanted a guy to come in here and work on fundamentals, work on the skills of basketball, get in the film room. What is going wrong? Let's fix this. Let's actually work, because we're going to have to earn our way back into relevance in the NBA to compete for playoff spots.
Yeah.
And that's what you thought John Beilein was going to do. And yet these veterans, and I know that there all these different reports of how they trolled him after he used certain word, like the certain word of thug and playing music like that, or just the way that they didn't connect with him. Even Andre Drummond came in and said that the Cavs, you could just tell right away, a guy that had just been traded here, said that it was worse than what it was in Detroit, and he had come to an even worse situation. So you wonder, what are you doing trading for a guy that has that much talent in Andre Drummond? He wasn't even on the floor on Friday night towards the end of the game.
Right.
And, he had like 13 and 12, I think it was, 13 points, 12 boards, or 13 points, 13 rebounds. Had an impact on the game and wasn't even in there in the fourth quarter. And you thought that game was going to get away from him because they allowed 41 points in the first quarter.
Yeah, he had 12 and 12.
12 and 12, and that was, again, in Washington, in the nation's capital. You allow the Wizards, who are a terrible team as well, to score 41 points in that first quarter. Well, then you think, okay, well, J.B. Bickerstaff is kind of getting his message across already because the Cavs showed some surprising turnaround there.
Sure.
Then they go down to Miami and get beat 124-105 last night. So
back-to-backs are always tough. Let's put it out there that way. I'm not saying J.B. Bickerstaff has no chance after that blowout loss that happened last night, but I liked what I saw on Friday night. I mean, I'm just looking at the box score right now. Colin 25. I mean, you're going to get 23 to 25 from Colin no matter what. It's just what he produces. Obviously, we still need assists from these guys. I mean, Garland had 4 assists. Right. Garland had 4 assists. Tristan had 4 assists. And then, the rebounds. Chetty had 10. Drummond had 12. And Tristan off the bench had 11. I mean, that's what you need. And with those 3 bigs that we have, I'm including Kevin Love into that mix as well. You have 3 of the top 15 rebounders in the league now. The number 1 rebounder in Andre Drummond. So you're not worried about the rebounds there, but you're more worried about the assists, and you're worried about, that plus minus, overall. And I'm telling you right now, the game what scared me about last night is whenever you look at the plus minus. Whenever you look at this plus minus for these bigs, I mean, you're looking at Andre Drummond what do you think his plus minus was?
Well,
obviously, a plus means you're out on the court and you're doing a very good job defending or everything like that.
Yeah, it's the difference between what your impact on the game is, whether your team is able to outscore the other team by so many points or you're being outscored by a certain amount of points you're on the floor. I'm going to go minus 10.
Minus 25. Andre Drummond.
That's bad.
Minus 25 means you're getting blown past.
Yeah.
Absolutely, you can't defend the rim at that point in time. He's not even the worst one. You know who was the worst one? Is a bench player. Tristan. Minus 27. Then you got Chetty for 22.
Chetty has completely
he's lost his confidence. He's lost everything. He's done.
You don't see that confident basketball player like when LeBron was here that Chetty could develop into. He has lost his outside shot. He's lost everything. When he's dribbling down the court, he's way out of control. The ball is he gets a nice steal against the Wizards in that fourth quarter, and the ball gets knocked away from him. So with this Cavs team where we're at now, moving on from John Beilein, going to J.B. Bickerstaff for the rest of the year and seeing where they go from there, what is the direction of this team? And even with Charles Barkley calling out these players and other people,
was very deserving
on TNT's tip-off show before their game on Thursday night, where do you see this team going, and will these players actually respond now that they've been called out and their actions have been kind of brought to the light? Will there be some sort of response towards the end of the year to build some momentum, to actually build a culture and rebuild this team and build back to relevance?
I don't see why you would even think that. I mean, like they haven't given
gotta
you
ask the
anything.
question.
Yeah, I know you have to ask the question. I'm not turning it
No,
on you.
no, I'm just
But
saying it's like you got to ask the question, but you don't see it.
But you don't see it. It's like the Browns. Why do you have faith in the Browns whenever they've put out crap over the last 20 years? You shouldn't have any faith in them. We always end up getting sucked into believing, and I think that's what we're going to end up happening with the Cavs. I mean, you're going to see performances like Friday night, give up 41 points, but then they're going to make this comeback, and you're going to feel good about it, and you're going to be like, okay, maybe they'll have an opportunity. But then they're going to have performances like last night, which they just shouldn't even be out there on the floor, and they get blown past, and it's a terrible sighting for that to happen. I think we're going to see more so what happened last night than we will for Friday night. I'm hoping JB has the turnaround capability of it, but I don't see it happening, and I see that he's going to be out of the job at the end of the year, and then we're going to be searching for another coach, which would mean which means Dan would have given, I think this is 6 coaches in the last 7 years, and that dates back to LeBron years, obviously. And the fact that LeBron was able to carry this mess of a franchise to a 3-1 deficit, winning a championship, just
4 straight finals
proves how great of a player LeBron James is. And we should all be thankful that LeBron was not only born here in Akron and was able to win us a championship, but because I don't see a championship coming from any of these sports teams for quite a while. And that's terrible of me to say that, but it's a fair statement.
Yeah, and you could be mad at LeBron when he left the first time going to Miami and didn't what he said he was going to do, but he came back. At this point, you can't be mad at LeBron.
Absolutely
and you
not.
Understand what's been going on behind the scenes the whole time and how, like you said, how much of a mess this franchise has been. It's just this team, hopefully you do see more games like Friday night and a young team learning how to win, because the gap between them at the bottom of the league and even the 8th seeded team in the playoffs, that gap is so wide right now. This team is going to need some performances like that just for the young guys to learn what it takes to win and then become leaders on the floor, to then maybe actually start and figure out a direction in the offseason, because they don't have one.
No.
This team really doesn't have a direction.
It's directionless. Yeah.
It's directionless. These last stretches of games need to be a way for the organization to find what direction they really want to go moving forward, and then maybe start the slow climb back to relevance in the NBA. Switching from a team that is bottom part of the league, been run poorly over the last several years and got lucky to have greatest player on the planet play for him, to a team that should have been a lot better last year, seemed like they were building in the right direction, seemed like they had a direction finally, and yet every single day there seems to be some sort of story coming out about this team. And I know there was stories about Odell Beckham and Sports Illustrated saying, oh, well, if he does get traded, he would love to go to the Jets, or going back to MetLife Stadium for the AFC team.
Right.
And then you also have Greg Robinson being caught with
157 pounds of weed. How much do you weigh?
I weigh 160, 165.
Okay, so he had you in the trunk of his car.
In marijuana.
Yeah, in marijuana, yes.
I mean, that's terrible. And he has not just cost himself his time here with the Browns, probably cost himself his career, his life, if he's convicted.
Charged with 20 years. The guy made $29 million in his career. He was the 2nd pick of the draft. He made $29 million. He made $7 million last year alone. Yeah. On a prove it deal, and he was an unrestricted free agent. He was probably going to make a $5 million sort of a year sort of thing, and he wasted that for 157 pounds of weed, which they were calculating could be anywhere from 300,000 to about 900,000. That's what you wasted. That you wasted your career, your life for that. That blows my mind. I've never seen an athlete be so stupid before and waste everything in it like that because they wanted to save time. And I guess apparently it was the fastest way was cutting across the border. With that much weed, why would you cut across the border? There's checkpoints everywhere.
I don't know. I know nothing about that sort of world anyways,
Yeah.
so I don't know what's going through your head. But especially someone that was in a position of, not necessarily prominence, but you're in the NFL. You're being paid handsomely to be an NFL player, given a second chance after bombing out as being a second pick and being touted as that next big time.
He had a good second half of the year.
He did. He had a pretty good second half of the year. He was the reason why the Browns had a good second half of the year leading into last season.
Yes.
And why Baker looked like the quarterback he needed to because he had an offensive line that played consistently. I don't think the offensive line was the biggest issue last year.
It wasn't. No, it absolutely wasn't.
There are holes.
It needs help.
It needs help, and it needs depth, but it wasn't the worst part of the team. It's just it needs to be more consistent. And when you saw that consistent play with 5 guys working as one unit, and even if someone went down with an injury during a game, you had the depth for someone to come in that understood and was able to keep that play maintain the level of play for that offensive line. When you come out of a football game, you actually don't want to be talking about the offensive line. If there's no conversation about them, they've actually done a really, really good job. If there's conversations about the offensive line after a game, probably not such a good thing. It means referees were calling their names a lot. There was a lot of yellow flags out there for holding or hands to the face from the offensive lineman, or the sack numbers were way up there, and there's just no chance. You see all those sacks where a quarterback takes a snap, takes 3 steps, and all of a sudden somebody's already in his face. Doesn't even have a chance to take that first look, even at the first wide receiver at the hot route off of the line of scrimmage. So the offensive line needs help, and now you're going to be looking for guys to step into these tackle spots on the outside to prevent, especially his blind side, Baker's blind side, coming off that left-hand side of the offensive line.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are so many different options that the Browns need to, all the holes, everything that you were just mentioning there, especially. The biggest hole, though, right now that Greg Robinson is officially out of the running for it, is, I think, offensive line. And a lot of people were talking about the Browns drafting an offensive tackle at number 10, whether it's Wirfs or Thomas or whoever it was, that might fall to them. You could all see that happening, but now that we have this analytical team here, don't you just have that gut feeling that they're going to trade down, that's what they want to do? Because I think that what you're going to end up seeing is you're going to see at least 3 quarterbacks go in the first 9 picks.
Yeah.
And then that 4th quarterback, someone's going to get a little jumpy, come up to the Browns and say, hey, you know what? It might be the Patriots. It might be the Patriots, someone at like number 23 that goes, you know what, we'll trade up 13 spots. We'll give you 23. We'll give you, a 2 or something like that, and you'll be able to go from there. And the analytical move would be to take said pick. But then you're passing up on a possible franchise cornerstone left or right tackle, and that's something that you absolutely need right now. I'm terrified that that's what's going to end up happening. That analytics is going to win out, and we're not going to take the best player.
The only way for Andrew Berry to prove that he wasn't a main source of that 1-31, and you might see some movement similar to the analytics and using analytics to move around the draft, but maybe in the 2nd and 3rd round and those types of things.
I hope.
In the 1st round, if there is a guy there that you've already established as the guy you want to take and you have rated high on your board and he's available to you, you take him. That's what it is. And when we had the number 1 pick, everybody was debating whether it was Baker or Saquon Barkley. And, people thought, oh, you can get Saquon Barkley, you can get a transcendent player at number 1, and then a quarterback will fall to you at number 4. You are leaving too much a chance when you think, oh, well, this person's giving us a pretty good deal here. Let's move back, and we'll get something similar to what we could have gotten at number 10.
Right.
But now you're going deeper into your draft guides, all the information you've done. And this team's a little bit behind because you got rid of some of your scouting department. You've revamped your front office. Guys that are going to have different opinions than all this time that you waited. There was scouts going to the Senior Bowl, getting all this information, now you're going to have some different opinions, so you have less time to go off of on that, and you're going to try to make a decision. If the guy is there at 10 and he's in the position that you touted as taking that,
deemed necessary.
We all think offensive line, free agency, trades, those types of things will have an impact on that.
Of course.
So those opinions may change, but right now we're thinking offensive line, and that's not the sexiest pick to have.
It isn't, but it's the right pick.
It's the right pick, and you need to get to a point where you're a team where you're not anticipating the day of the draft. I was asked last night on the podcast, are you excited, and what are your plans for the draft? And I said, I really don't have any.
Yeah.
Maybe the Cut and the Voice of the Land can get together and we can do something. I mentioned that
cool.
last night.
Yeah.
But it's one of these years where at this time of the year, I'm kind of like getting antsy and trying to get all the way to the draft, and it's still 2 months away. Like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the draft. We're Brownstown. Draft is our night. That's our
Christmas. It's our Christmas.
It's our Christmas. It's our Super Bowl. Like, that's our night. The off season is ours.
Yeah.
I'm done with that time of year, though.
Mm-hmm.
It's time for.
Well, we thought we were done with it last year.
We thought we were.
We didn't have a first-round draft pick because we picked up Odell, and we were like, I'm good with it. Odell for 17? Absolutely.
Yeah, and we got wrapped up into it. We both did. A lot of people did in this city, got wrapped up into the hype. Now we're in a show-me state, and I'm not anticipating this draft. So I don't care if you go offensive line in the draft, because you need to become a team that supplements the talent you have on your team, that has developed a successful culture out there on the field, and the coaching staff that has developed and front office that have developed a successful culture as an organization. The great teams supplement with young players that get some experience in their first year, and when you're not able to hold on to certain guys because of free agency, because of the market set for some of these guys, and they go take the money, guess what? Your young players are ready to step up in year 2 and year 3 to take those spots, and you don't drop off that much. Or maybe you have a slight drop-off year, then the next year you're right back to 3-4 years of competing for Super Bowls or even at least division titles.
Right.
That is the culture that we are trying to get to and what should be here in a football town in Cleveland. So I'm not anticipating the draft. I don't know if you are.
Yeah.
But I don't care if it's offensive line. If the guy's there, you take him. Don't trade down, and Andrew Berry can prove that he wasn't that 1-31 guy by just doing what everybody expects he's going to do and trade back.
I'm looking forward to the draft for the sense that, it is Combine Week. Combine Week is coming up. It's this coming up week. I love Combine Week. I hate the fact that my provider no longer carries the NFL Network, and it kills me.
Yeah.
Which is awful, but I'm going to keep up with it, as much as possible.
Yeah.
But I don't need a sexy pick. I don't need a sexy pick. We have the sexy positions are all filled up for us. We are all sexed up.
Just put them in position
We got this
to succeed.
going on right now. We got Baker. We have the running backs. We have the cornerbacks.
Mm-hmm.
We have the wide receivers. Obviously, you want to fill in depth and go from there. Cool, whatever. I hear that. But the positions that we need are these offensive tackles. We need the tackles filled. And if you're not going to pick it up in free agency, which getting a right tackle in free agency or a left tackle especially, but it costs you a ton of money. And we got about $63 million to play with right now, which is all fine and good, but I want to find someone that is going to be here for the long haul. And if you're telling me that I can get Wirfs or Thomas or one of these, offensive tackles that will turn into something that we have as a cornerstone, like a Joe Thomas. I'm not saying you got to be Joe Thomas,
right?
But if you can be 75% Joe Thomas, that's a Pro Bowl every once in a while, and it's like a Joel Bitonio. Mm-hmm. Like, if you can be a Joel Bitonio as an offensive, tackle, just move that over, I would take that every day of the week, because what was the key success for us whenever we went 7-8-1, the last 8 games of that year previously? Baker didn't get sacked. Baker didn't get touched. He got sacked, I believe it was like 6 times over the last 8 games, and he was only touched like 10 times over that time frame. That's what you need, and that's exactly what I'm hoping the Browns are going to look at. But once again, this analytical take of mine is that my deepest fear is that we will have those offensive tackles on the board because 3 quarterbacks, and this is supposed to be a historically great wide receiver draft. A couple of those guys go ahead of us, and then all of the tackles are there, and we go, you know what? We're going to outsmart ourselves again, and we'll trade down to 18, and within 10 to 18, all of those guys are taken. And then we're sitting there just, diddling around thinking, oh, well, I guess we'll take a tackle in the 3rd round. That's not what I need.
Or they'll take a 3rd round rated tackle and take him in the 1st round and, surprise everybody. And, just overthink
That is
things.
textbook Cleveland.
Yes.
Textbook Cleveland right there.
Thinking you're smarter than everybody else, but at the same time, as you just said, outsmarting yourself instead of just doing what is there. That is why... And I'm hoping what Andrew Berry said is right. We're in a show me state with this team. He said that yes, they're going to use analytics to fuel information. They're going to fuel decisions with the analytics, but they're still going to be a scouting driven team, a football operational type team with analytics just pushing the narrative a little bit more like it has in all sports. It is a part of sports. Let's not deny it. Analytics is a part of it.
Oh, of course.
It can't be the main part in football. We've seen that before. So hopefully he's right and the scouting takes over and is the final decision when it comes time for number 10. I got to admit, I got to do a little more digging on some of these guys. I could barely come up with a name last night when I was being interviewed.
I was going to say the combine is the exact time that you're just pay attention this week. You'll be fine.
Well, hopefully the gym's got NFL Network on. Bring the headphones, plug into the
Good
treadmill,
call.
and
good call.
Because I'm working all day long when they got the stuff going on. Then they have the review from about 8 to 11 on NFL Network. So maybe if
they always do a recap. And
if the gym's got it on, then I can kind of get the short little recap. I just miss
Good Morning Football. I love Good Morning Football.
Yeah,
one of my favorite shows.
Great show. Kay Adams, Nate Burleson,
Kyle Brandt, Peter Schrager.
Yeah, those guys.
Fantastic.
They do a phenomenal job. Hey, shout out from the VTF to Good Morning Football. Speaking of football, just real quickly before we transition to baseball. Your thoughts on the proposed new CBA the NFL voted on? The players are pushing their vote back to Tuesday. 17-game season, possible 7th team in the playoffs. Your
helps
reaction
out Cleveland. Yeah,
but
definitely
you
helps out Cleveland.
don't want it to, right?
What? I don't care. At this point in time, just make the playoffs. If you make the playoffs at 9 and 8, which is what it would end up being, I don't care. That's a winning season. B, you're in the playoffs. Yeah. I'm going to take that no matter what. I just want to be in the playoffs. It gives us another opportunity to get there. Gives another opportunity to everybody, obviously.
Yeah.
That 17th game, I'm okay with. It depends on what the players want to accept and what they're willing to take.
And I don't think they're going to.
They might not. I mean,
they're going to look at it as, are we really being compensated enough to add one more game, to add one more regular season game where we're putting our
split is 52 to 48, which is what the proposed split would be, you're looking at probably another close to $1 billion just adding that extra week, for revenue for all the players. J.J. Watt came out and said, it's a hard no for him. He's one player. He's made $100 million in his career. How about the 3rd string cornerback, for the Detroit Lions that doesn't make anywhere near as much as that? Someone came out and said it, and I wish I could remember who said it, but these guys, a lot of the NFL, like 92% of the NFL, aren't millionaires, like they make hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? They make 6 figures, but they're not hundreds of millions.
We won't see, but
stuff. Yeah, hopefully we see it
down the line.
But a lot of these players don't see that sort of money that J.J. Watt makes. So there's a lot of people out there that are saying adding the benefits, adding the cut down on the marijuana usage. A lot of that the players really want or need, and that's something that might sway the lines and go from there. Apparently, the NFL they want that 17th game. They want that 7th playoff spot, which I kind of like the 7th playoff spot because it puts such a hard value on being number 1 in your conference. Because if you think about
it, you're the only team that gets a bye.
You're the only team that gets the bye at that point, and everyone would be striving to get there. So at week 17 or 18, of the regular season, you don't see as many people sitting their players. You want that to happen.
Yeah, competition all the way throughout. I just think that
plus it'd give us an extra week for fantasy.
Yeah, it does.
There
I mean,
we go.
just the money and the intrigue in football just extends out more. The 7th team in the playoffs, I get the 17th game, but the 7th team in the playoffs, I know a lot of Browns fans like that because, like you just said, like, oh, it gives us more of a chance to get in the playoffs and we can end our streak of not being in. Guess what? We have to be a team. We have to be a team that is striving to be division winners now, not just trying to get in the playoffs. That was a few years ago.
Sure.
If this was a few years ago, I'd be okay with it because we were so down in the dumps, so far back, that if you could develop into even just a mediocre team, an average team in the NFL, you would have more of a chance to make the playoffs. Great. You can end the streak. You can get your players some playoff experience. Maybe get beat up in that game. Maybe that helps build your culture. Now, with the way that this team is set up in the skill positions like we just mentioned, and even across the board, do you really want to see just 9-8 teams or maybe 8-9 teams, 7 and whatever it would be?
I'm
7
a 6-10 Browns fan.
I understand.
I want in. I want in.
I
No
want
matter
in,
what.
but I want in. I want in. Do you
Whether-
understand the difference between I just want in
So if
versus
they're
I want in?
10-7 to 8-9. Okay, there's a 2-game difference right there. Okay, either way, if you're in, you're in.
Give me 11-6, 12-5. That type of team. But that's what you have to strive for. Trust me, I understand where you're coming from. This isn't like a heated debate like we got into last week. Trust me, that's not what this is. I would love to be, if we get in. I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, well we only just snuck into the playoffs. I'm not going to poo-poo it like that or push it down like that. It's just
I'll take a backdoor sneak in.
Right. I'm just at the point where I want to be into the original structure of the 6, but also in even the 3rd or 4th spot because you won the division. You maybe not just you're still developing into trying to become one of the top 2 teams in the FC. That's where this team needs to strive to get to. It just seems like there's just something every single week with Cleveland sports or some sort of tie-in to Cleveland sports. I don't know if you saw my tweet. I kind of talked about it being almost like a soap opera coming to your daytime television. Check your local listings, those types of things. There's different, those back and forth type thing. It just, every time I go on break at work and I go on Twitter, or I'm just kind of looking through my Apple Watch goes off and it's Bleacher Report. Well, such and such player was caught with this much marijuana this week. According to Sports Illustrated, Odell Beckham wants to be traded to New York. Baker Mayfield is now being alleged to have this person in his life for doing this wrong.
What did we say last week? There's always something going on with this Browns team.
There's always something going on. It's just you'd rather see it, instead of being off-season drama, be on-field, on-court, on-surface success. That takes us to the last team in Cleveland sports, and it's sunny outside. You're starting to get that baseball feel. They were supposed to play spring training baseball yesterday in Arizona with the Cleveland Indians. Didn't get a chance. I think it was raining over there in Arizona. But, the baseball is coming. Baseball is on its way.
Thank God.
Thank goodness. Because I could really use some baseball right now. But, of course, there's drama with the baseball team, too. Will they, won't they, extend Frankie Lindor? Frankie is saying all the right things. He wants to win here in Cleveland. Hey, Paul Dolan, your best player, top 5 player in baseball, wants to win in the city of Cleveland. Would love to be able to find a way between him, his agent, and this team to be extended. What are we doing? What is the direction you really want to go? Do you want one of those types of players? I've seen people say that if you sign him, then you won't be able to compete because you've got all that money tied up. We've talked about it before. There is a way to do that, and I trust this front office, who is very creative in maintaining a competition level and staying near the top of the American League in baseball to get going. They just are hogtied by an owner that won't do and won't give them the resources that I know he has. Mm-hmm. It's a terrible market to be in.
Of course.
To be able to do that consistently like the Yankees, like the Dodgers, in those big markets like that. Right. But there's still a way to do that, and the owner has the resources in which to do it in a mid-market. Will they sign Frankie Lindor?
No. No.
Or are they going to trade him like we talked about last year?
They will trade him. They will trade him, and it will be this season. I firmly believe that it will
This
be
offseason or trade deadline?
Trade deadline. I 100% believe that. I don't want it to happen. We've talked about this before.
Yeah.
We've got into this heated debate before.
But we're getting closer to the end.
But we are getting closer to it. And I really do believe that they're not. I don't see them being able to do this. You're looking at a minimum $35 million a year. 10-year, $35 million per year. $350 million, which is more than what Machado got, which is more than what Bryce Harper got. It's not as much as Mike Trout got, but I think that's what we're looking at. $350 million. He's already turned down I believe it was a $100 and $200 million contract from Cleveland. You at that point in time, you're looking at $20 million a year, which is what the going rate was for the Dolans to pay. It's not going to happen. It's unfortunate, Cleveland fans. I'm sorry to break the news to you. I obviously want to see him here for the long haul, but we got to be real. We have to be real. This isn't L.A. This isn't even Boston. Boston just sent their best player to L.A. because they didn't want to pay him $35 million a year. This isn't New York. It's not the big market. So we have to make do with what we have. We have a great scouting system here in Cleveland that finds all these diamonds in the rough, especially pitching. Like, we have the best pitching recruiters, out there that know exactly what they're looking for. People like Shane Bieber, who thought Shane Bieber was going to do really much of anything, what he's done, and he's been fantastic.
On the verge of becoming the ace.
Absolutely. Him, Clev, great pitching. It's unfortunate that we're not going to be able to hold on to these high talented people like a Frankie, maybe even a Shane, down the road. But it is unfortunate. I do believe that this is going to be the last year with him. And once again, it's just unfortunate because you want to see him here for his entire career, like someone like a Derek Jeter was able to accomplish with the Yankees. He keeps saying
different market, but still.
Right. He keeps saying he wants to win a championship here with Cleveland. He wants to end the drought, which is, I believe, at 72 years now.
Since 1948.
Yeah, it has been a tough road for this Cleveland team, especially Game 7, being 3-1 up in that series. Obviously, it was terrible. I don't want to bring that up, people, but it is something that I just wish that we would have I wish Dolan would just throw it out there and just be like, we're not going to get it done.
Right, because if you look at the Frankie Lindor situation, he is one of the top 5 players in all of the game. You go back to a guy like Jim Thome.
5 to 10, yeah, for sure.
If you go back to a guy like Jim Thome, who people got mad at for taking the money and going when he was a guy brought up in the Indians organization and was one of those big-time players for you, this is on another level with the marketability. And baseball has issues in how they market their players as it is, but Frankie is one of those players you can market your league after and connect with the younger baseball fan and get more people back interested in America's pastime. He's not one of those top players that is just saying just the right thing, just saying enough like, I'm here on this team, we're going to compete all year long, we're trying to win the American League, we're trying to go to the World Series. No, he's saying consistently, every single interview he does, I want to win a championship in Cleveland. I want to be here. My people are talking with the Indians, and we're trying to have these conversations of how I can be here. He is being more open to it. We talked about the Browns. We're in a show-me state and can't listen to everything they say. Maybe some of it is being overdone on how he's saying it to say the right thing, and you have to see it actually matriculate if he were to be signed or, be maybe distraught at first when he has to go elsewhere, and it's just that situation forces itself. But he's telling you what he wants and what he's willing to do to be in a mid-market. He doesn't have to go to a big market. He wants to be here. Find a way to do it. In the back of my mind, I'm the same way. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to be traded, and we're getting closer to being more on the same page if that has to happen. But he's telling you, keep him here. Do whatever you can. If you don't, Paul Dolan, there's some people that love Paul Dolan and think that, people are way too negative about him. Yeah. You sign Frankie, I will give you all the credit in the world, and I will come on here the first minute of a podcast and say how wrong I was about
Round
Paul
of
Dolan.
applause, right.
That he has the ability in him to make the right decision when it's necessary to keep the team competitive. And if he doesn't, I will continue to bash Paul Dolan and every single owner in this town because of how they've run each organization into the ground.
Right before we go, because we got to wrap up here,
Yep.
I do want to just say this. Be careful what you wish for, Cleveland. And whenever I say that, look at just north of us in Detroit. How bad does that Miguel Cabrera contract look right now?
Right.
How bad does that Albert Pujols contract look right now? You pay these guys 10 years in advance, and you give them $300+ million.
Totally understand.
And for a position that Frankie's a great, phenomenal shortstop. He keeps in shape. The only time that we've ever had any sort of issues with him was last year at the beginning of the year. He only missed like 20 games. It's not that big of a deal. Okay, but be careful what you wish for, because if you do set that up, Detroit. Look at Detroit. Detroit signed all of that. They don't have a championship. They went to the World Series with Miggy, but now Miggy is. He's not even a shell of himself. He shouldn't be out on the field, and they still owe him $120 million. You don't want that to happen to someone like Frankie at that point in time in their career.
And hurt your organization. Totally understand that. But I'll just remind you before we go.
Kills your organization.
And remind everybody else that I have enough faith in this organization, in the front office, to find a way to get on the same page with Frankie and his agent to extend him a few more years to have him compensated, but also allow still for some flexibility and be creative as they have been. Because Detroit was not smart with it. I trust this organization. I'm not paid to make those decisions and know what that answer is.
Yeah.
But I trust in Chris Antonetti, Mike Chernoff, this front office, the way they've been able to go through the player development process, but also make these moves to do just enough to stay competitive in this window with the best manager in baseball, one of the best players in baseball. I trust that they can find that creative way to extend Frankie and not hurt the organization moving forward as well, and still have some flexibility. But leaving everything there, Cleveland sports drama, again, soap opera coming to your daytime television some point in the near future. Will they, won't they? Ross and Rachel, friend situation with Frankie. We'll keep our eyes on all of that and every single thing that pops up every single day in terms of Cleveland sports. And you know where to come to get all of those conversations about everything that happens. That is the Voice of the Land podcast. Again, we thank our partners, NEO Sports Network, web streaming studio by LPV, and of course, our producer behind the proverbial glass, Peter Tellett, for everything he's doing for us with the audio and video content you guys are getting here at Voice of the Land. But for Nick Paulus, for Peter Tellett, I'm Kevin Arnold, reminding all of you sports fans out there to follow us at VTL_pod on Twitter. And don't let anyone ever tell you it's just a game. We will see you next week. And everybody that listens and watches, we love you all 3,000. See ya. Bye.